Purajana Namaskaram. I'm a Lt.Gen. PG Kamath. I'm Car Street Antu, Mandlur Antu, Megelo, birth Jalele. Thainantere I'm a retired Gala. Our Indian Army into 40 years service Gala. Our 1964 Antu, at the age of 10, I joined Sainik School. Thay that one I'm NDA Chamkalo. Thay that one NDA matlab National Defense Academy. Thay that one Indian Military Academy, Dehradun Avachuno. 1973 June antu, I became a commissioned officer. Thay that one 40 years army to service kartari. 2013 antu, I retired as a commandant of Army War College, a prestigious institution in the entire Indian Army. Thananthara, another 2 years, I served as Special Rapporteur to the National Human Rights Commission, 10 states are Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Karnataka. Now I'll switch on to the main topic. My main topic today is career opportunities in the armed forces. Because the Indian armed forces is about, including the Army, Air Force, Navy, is nearly about 1.5 million people. And I'm only wanting my GSB community as far as possible to join as officers only. So I'll concentrate on the officers' induction into the armed forces. See, if you really see, Indians were slaves for 250 years under the British. See the photograph in front of you. In 1770, the Bengal famine, 10 million deaths when we were under the British. You have to understand and realize what is freedom, what is the value of freedom, what it being an independent country, a sovereign country. It is so much important for our next generation to understand. You know our generations of the generations, about 3 or 4 or 5 generations, 250 years, spend their time under the British with their knees bent and eyes looking down to a foreigner. Isn't it a shame? Now that we have got independence and we have got a freedom, we need to see that our freedom, our sovereignty is guarded, is defended. That is the value of being an independent country, that we rule ourselves. Let's go a bit further. Again in 1870, there was a famine. 5.5 million died. If you really look at it, from 1875 to 2000, 1900, about 25 years only, nearly around 20 to 25 million Indians died out of starvation from famine. Any of this could be our grandfather, great-grandfathers, great-great-grandmothers. All they died because our country was not free. In 1885, again a million died. And as late as 1943, when the Second World War was on, all our food resources were sent from our country to the other countries for the British Army, armed forces. And again, 3 to 4 millions died. Do we understand the value of freedom and be independent? Of being independent in our country? India is a great country. India is a great civilization. But we also underwent about 2.5 centuries of slavery. Let's never let my country, our country, never come to this state again. That should be the vow which every Indian should take. And we all need to love our country, because if we don't love, no one else is going to love our country. India actually is blessed strategically. We are located in one of the most strategically important locations in the world. We have got a frontier of land frontier of 15,000 kilometers. We have got a sea coastline of 7,500 kilometers. We have got 1,000 islands. We have got an exclusive economic zone of 2.5 million square kilometers. This entire country, with its population of 1.3 billion plus, is defended day and night for threats emanating from the land, from the space, from the air, from the sea, from underwater, and cyber threat, so that we can carry out our day-to-day activity and our country can develop. Peace is so essential for the development of our country. Now, India is one of the foremost economies in the world. Strategically, we are able to follow a autonomous national policy and pursue our national interest. Why? Because we are strong. Because if you really see, India has got number of instruments of national power. Our economic power, we are strong. Political power, we have got a very nice political system which is there with us, which is a democracy. Science and technological power. Our soft power, our economic power, our diplomatic power, all these are used. But ultimately, the last power, the last arrow in our quiver, our last Brahmastra, that is the military force, military power. Military power, incidentally, is the last power which a country has. And if the military, if the Indian Army, Indian armed forces fail, the nation fails. So it's so important for a country to be economically strong, politically powerful, and militarily absolutely so powerful that no country can really. Yeah. This is the map of India which you see in your textbook, right? Actually, this is not the actual map of India. So many of strategic mistakes we have done in the past, that the present map of India is not like this. Tibet, which was a buffer state, we have lost that buffer state. It was not our part of our country. Then we have also lost what we call as the part of J&K. This much area we have lost to Pakistan, a 1/3 of J&K. Because initially, when the Pakistan is attacked in 47-48, J&K was not a part of India. And thereafter, Pandit Nehru went for a premature ceasefire. And that is a long story to tell. But all the same, what I need to emphasize now is the map of India, this much area is the Pak-occupied Kashmir. And this much area is the Artsakhin, which the Chinese occupied in the early 50s, right up to 62, when we are not really aware of our international border and importance of military force. Moreover, in the east, though this entire Arunachal Pradesh, earlier known as NIFA, is under us, under our full control, and it's a sovereign part of our country. But still, this 90,000 square kilometers is being claimed by China as its own territory. So there is a strong defense which is required. This entire Tibet, I told you, we have lost it. It was a buffer state between India and China. China occupied it in 1950-51. So India is in a precarious situation where China and Pakistan are friends. Both are nuclear power. Both are missile power. And next war we have to fight probably with China and Pakistan together, attacking us from the western side and from the north and the northeastern side. So India has got a lot to defend. We have to be militarily powerful. We have no choice to survive in this geopolitical world. India has to be very strong. Why I'm trying to tell you all this is to tell the importance of the armed forces. Because a country which is weak cannot survive. Now look at Ukraine. Look what happened in Afghanistan. The entire country has been taken over by the terrorists because the terrorists defeated the regular standing armed forces of Afghanistan. And the country is under the terrorists, the Taliban. So to keep the Indian armed forces strong is essential so that we defend our country, we defend our sovereignty, and we defend our freedom. With this brief introduction, how important it is. Now we'll go to the next. The Army, Air Force, and Navy have got officers. It starts from lieutenant, the junior most, look at the bottom, then the captain, then a major, then a lieutenant colonel, colonel, brigadier is a one-star general, major general is a two-star general, lieutenant general is a three-star general, and the general is a four-star general. We have got only one general in the entire Indian Army of 1.3 million. Similarly, Air Force has got a pilot officer, flight lieutenant, squadron leaders. I have kept the equivalent in mind. Group captain in Indian Air Force is equal to a colonel in Indian Army and a captain in Indian Navy. All are equal ranks, but they are named differently due to traditions. Then there is a Air Commodore 1-star, Air Vice Marshals 2-star, Air Marshal is 3-star, and there is one Air Chief Marshal for the entire Indian Air Force that is a 4-star rank. When you come to the Navy, there is a sub-lieutenant, then captain of Indian Army is equal to a lieutenant in Indian Navy, then the lieutenant commander, commander, captain, commodore, rear admiral. Rear admiral is a 2-star general, a 2-star admiral. Air vice admiral is a 3-star, and admiral is the 4-star. We have only one admiral in the entire Indian Navy. This is how the structure looks. Now, when I want you to get commissioned, let's say you want to get commissioned in the Indian Army, you rise from the rank of a lieutenant, captain, major, lieutenant colonel, colonel, like that you keep on rising. It is not necessarily for a lieutenant to rise up to general, not possible, because there is only one general's rank and 50,000 officers below. And if you come to a lieutenant general, there might be around 50, 60 lieutenant generals, 50 odd lieutenant generals in the fighting force. Out of these 50, one is picked up to be a general, just to tell you. Similarly, this ratio keeps on becoming more and more difficult as you go up, because ultimately the Indian Army is a pyramid with only one place at the top. So many of you can come and retire as colonel, brigadier, major general, and lieutenant general like me. You can retire and then go. So this is how your rank structure is there in the Indian Army, Air Force, and Navy. Now let me tell you, if you are only looking for money, then please don't join the Indian Armed Forces. That doesn't mean you are left impoverished. As a lieutenant, when you join, your total pay, including your DA and other allowances, will be between 80 to 90,000. That's a substantial sum for a boy of 23 years, 22, 23 years when you get commissioned as a lieutenant. And thereafter, it keeps on increasing. It is a full government scale, and you are starting as a gazetted officer, as a lieutenant, pilot officer, and a sub-lieutenant. And thereafter, the Indian Armed Forces have got their messes and other privileges, which I would not like to speak on, because they are part and parcel of the service culture. Now, let us see the next slide. This is for persons below the officer's rank. A person can join a sepoy, lance knight, havildar, naib subedar, and subedar major. So a havildar for 24 years, and rest of them all retire after 17 years only service. And then they get their pension, it won't be substantial with only 17 years service. A havildar retires at 24, but I suggest that you try to become an officer, because generally the education level of our community is much high. Now, how do you join the Indian Armed Forces as an officer? See, there is a UPSC entries, Union Public Service Commission entries. In this entry, there is a NDA entry. The minimum is 12th pass, means you have to get high percentage. Not you have to be 90, you have to get above 60 or whatever. That's there in the form. NDA entrance examination, it is called. And certain Navy also, there is a special entry for Navy, but they appear for the same examination. You spend 3 years in NDA, as I have spent, and then 1 year in IMA, that is total 4 years. After joining NDA, within next 4 years, you become a lieutenant in the Indian Army or Indian Navy, whatever. And NDA is a National Defense Academy which has got officers of Army, Navy, and Air Force. The Army takes 1 year after NDA to become officer. Navy also takes 1 year after NDA to become officer. Air Force takes 1.5 years after NDA to become officers. Then there is another examination after you have passed your graduation. Means you can rest assured that you are not that the doors to join the Indian Armed Forces close. You can join it at 12th. If you have missed out, you become a graduate and then again join. And there is a examination called as Combined Defense Services Examination. After this examination, within 18 months after you join, you directly join Indian Military Academy at Dehradun or OTA, wherever it is, and within 18 months, you become a lieutenant in the Indian Army. Then there are non-UPSC entries also. This is the technical entry scheme. This is the technical entry scheme. After your 12th, you join OTA there. It's a non-UPSC entry. But these are science graduates, science. They have to take physics, chemistry, maths. And then they are taken after service selection board interviews. 4 years. You become lieutenant in the Indian Army, and after becoming Army officer also, you train for 1 more year. So after 5 years, you become an officer. Then there are short service commission officers. See, these are non-UPSC entry. Please note, technical graduate commission, short service commission. These have got only 1 year in the officers training academy, and then become lieutenant in the Indian Army. Short service commission is up to the age of 10, up to the service of 10 years, and you can extend it up to 14 years. Thereafter you go, but you do not get a pension, but you are called a ex-serviceman. You are called a veteran. Now, don't get confused because this is not so easy to tell every bit of it of the entry. There is a very, very easy side. First, let me deal with the women entry. Women entry is also there, where the graduate UPSC entry, they can come at combined defense services examination. Non-UPSC entries are NCC and JAD. Then you can go, there is a cutoff marks of 60% and all for a graduate technical entry. All these three are women entry. They can come three, one by combined defense services examination, one is non-UPS entry. If you are a GAD, means judge advocate general. If you are a law qualified officer, or you have got a NCC C certificate, and if you are a graduate, technical graduate, you can also join. After the survey, all will undergo service selection board interview, and after 49 weeks of training, within 1 year, you become a lieutenant in the Indian Army. However, point at issue is your total service would be around 14, but after 10, you can get absorbed as a permanent commission as well. But it depends upon, because rules are changing fast. No one can vouch for it, but if you are doing well, you are bound to become get a permanent commission. Now I come to the next, this one. There is a, as I told you, there are UPSC examination, National Defense Academy entrance examination, and combined defense services examination. First, after the examination you pass, you go to the service selection board interviews. After service selection board interviews, the merit list is made. After the merit list is made, you are sent to the medical. After your medical, top 300, 400, depending upon the vacancies you are taken. Just to give a statistics, 4 lakhs appear for NDA each year and 400 get selected, 1 in 1,000. These figures should not discourage you, because after the 4 lakhs, 2.5 lakhs appear just for the namesake without any preparations. And then your competition is with the rest. There are important websites. Now I want to tell you, should not get confused there because there are number of entries. What are the rules? There are sites where you have to just go into the Google and say join the Indian Army, or join the Indian Air Force, or join the Indian Navy. The sites will open up. In these sites, it is so nicely given, so exhaustive. You don't need any other guidance if you are able to read these websites well. Firstly, you go to the officers commission, officer selection. From officer selection, you go to a place called am I eligible? In that, it will ask you whether you are eligible, asking certain details from you. Then on the left hand side, there is a notification. It also tells you what are the present slots which are open where the applications can be filled. All applications are filled only online. No other way and method to fill the application. And then go, and then the process starts. So there is no ambiguity. What I suggest is you go through these application forms and the website along with some elder in your family for a day, and then when every picture is very clear to you, then start registering and then applying. It's a simple form. Deliberately fill in the application form. You will get your call letter for the NDA examination or CDA, Combined Defense Services examination, depending upon where you want to go, in what form you have filled. I am giving the schemes again. It is very, very clear. There is nothing. Entry scheme for officers is there. Type of, if you see here, entry scheme for officers, type of commission, GSO or recruitment, eligibility criteria for officers is also there, and other ranks, GSOs and OR is also there. Now this is where you get trained in the Indian Military Academy and in NDA. See, here you are trained under a RT gun. Here is the infantry training with a rocket launcher. Here is a youngster who is full of pride getting commissioned as an officer by his parents. Here is another one who is getting absolutely proud that he has become an officer. After his training, after successful passing out, here his mother and his father put the pips on him. Similarly, we are all simple folks. You don't have to be anything outstanding, but sincere, hardworking, and have some confidence, and your level of fluency in English should be reasonable. We all can become officers provided we have a determination to do it. They are not anything outside, they are the common man from India, from our country. See, here is a young girl who has become a lieutenant. Look at the pride in the eyes of her mother and the father. This is how, when you get commissioned, when you come out of the get out hall, you throw all your hats up with so much of glee that you have become an officer. Then you spend the next 15-20 minutes finding your cap. They're all newly commissioned officers. Here they are. Here these newly commissioned women officers. This is the Indian Army. This is the Indian Air Force. This is the Indian Navy. This is the submarine, which goes inside the water for underwater warfare. This is the infantry, which is the fighting bayonet tip of the entire Indian Army, who hold the ground, who fight, who evict the enemy, who fire and who bayonet the enemy if he is not died. This is again infantry, completely camouflaged in desert, waiting. This is the armored corps, they fight in tanks. This is the artillery, they fire shells, artillery shells. You see a shell leaving a muzzle. You can see the shell also and the flash also. This is at Siachen. Jai Hind. Ultimately, before I say Jai Hind, I think I have to tell you one thing more. This Indian Armed Forces is one, we are almost independent. Our top and all comes under the Raksha Mantri, Rajya Raksha Mantri and all. But you as an officer, you don't have to bother who the politician is. You just do your work, you be sincere, you be professional, you rise in ranks. Unlike the bureaucrat or the police who have to kowtow to every politician who comes around, in Indian Armed Forces, you don't have to do it. You serve for the Constitution and you defend your nation. That's one of the biggest assets I have found in joining the Indian Armed Forces. Jai Hind.